As many of you know, I often build more than one kit at a time. And sometimes on different days I cover different things and I actually see things differently or do different amounts of work. For example, one might be a kit where I'm just showing some samples of how I'd like to see the wiring done just to include in the kit. And in another case, I actually might be building a humidor to test or might be building a humidor to sell complete. So I'll do different amounts of wiring, and that's the case here. So what I've done is I've run this alternative video, and I do hope that you'll sit through and watch it because it does cover a number of details that the previous back installation video just didn't have. So it might be nice for you to watch this. We talk a little bit about wiring conventions and a couple of things that I didn't go into on the previous introduction to the back wiring videos. Now, what I've done with this particular project is, in order to get the wires closer to the corner, closer into the back, I actually placed the wiring pads up against, not completely, but mostly up against the back, if you can see that. There we go. Looks like you can see it there. Okay, so when you do stuff like that, it might make it a little bit more difficult to feed your zip ties through, which you can see is the small problem that I'm having. Make as big a loop as you can. And what I also did was I have added one of the zip tie pads up here, which we're going to do next. Is that still in camera? Yeah, looks like it. There we go. So sometimes it will be handy to have an awl or a small screwdriver, something so that you can go ahead and flip these up. Now, if you place the pad further up or further towards the center, you can usually catch this with your finger and simply avoid that problem. Just really depends on how you want it to look in the end. So I'm going to start with the largest assembly, the largest wire loom that's going to go into this set, and thread it in here first since it has the largest connector. Okay, and each one of these is going to tug on this just a little bit. I'm going to get this guy started. There we go. And this guy's going to feed through up here. Now, again, we don't know how long this wire is going to be or how much wire we're going to need here. So I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to set it aside. I'm going to take that Velcro tie that I had on here, which I don't seem to have anymore. Oh, there it is. And I'm just going to go ahead and loop it through the fan assembly to just hold some of this stuff out of the way. It looks like this guy popped apart already. So one of the things that's also going to be powered from up here is going to be this whip to power the controller. If you remember, controller power whip right there. So I'm going to take a spot for that as well, and then I'm going to determine how I'm going to want this to be, red or green, green, red, however you want to do it. I'll just pick these two on this side, and I'll make the outbound one red and the inbound green. Now, by adding this now, I have pretty much identified which side's going to be which, and I'll just tie it up and get it out of the way. Now look, once we get this in and the controller up top, we might find that this whip is too long, in which case we can either put a little loop in it and stick it up to the ceiling, or cut it and retin it and make it custom size. The choice is yours. When I start wiring, what I like to do is I like to leave plenty of wire so that I don't not have enough wire eventually at the end, or if I make some kind of mistake and say, oh Jesus, that would look better wired or run through this location instead of that location. You know, once you cut a wire, you can't make it longer again. But you know, I give you guys enough wire, but if you make a mistake, obviously you can change the convention. You know, you can change the color of wire, or you can go to the hardware store and certainly get some of your own wire. Now, what I think I'm going to do here is I'm going to make these top terminals here a home run, because I do believe that I will have enough wire to, or enough open terminals on the control center to go ahead and land a couple of greens and a couple of reds. Usually I leave plenty of terminals for that. So we're going to thread these guys up through here like so. We will take them over the top. Now remember, these have been tinned already, and if you don't remember from previous discussions, they're cut to go into these terminals at about a 1/2 inch or 10 millimeter. Okay, so just remember that. I guess 10 millimeters, more like 4/10 of an inch, but what's 1/10 of an inch between friends? All right, so there we go, like that. Now we're going to be able to snug some of this stuff up, and we'll be able to change it accordingly as we go along. But doing it here just means you're not reaching into the humidor and having to get all crowded and make kind of a hassle out of it. Now the last one that's going to go in here is a wire to convention, and this cooler fan is timed. All right, so this is not a on 100% of the time item like this distribution fan. Look what I did here. I put that on sideways. That's kind of silly. So this guy actually gets its own control wire. And if you remember back from any part of the convention process here, you should remember that 1 is blue, that's cooling, 2 is orange, that's heating, 3 is humidification, that's yellow, and 4, the gray, is dehumidification. So also in my scheme is brown, and brown is cooling fan wire. Take a moment and study the 2 photographs of the 12-volt DC fans. It's very important that you wire these fans with the correct polarity, meaning the right wires to the right terminals. Now in our example, we have 2. We have a fan that would run full time, where the red wire represents the 12-volt DC plus into the fan, and the black wire represents the 12-volt DC minus. So in order to run this fan full time, we would connect the red wire from the fan to the red wire in our humidor project, and the black wire in our fan to the green wire in our humidor project. In all cases, the black wire in the 12-volt fans should be wired to green in the humidor project, which is 12-volt DC minus. And in some cases, such as this cooler fan assembly, a separate control wire of a different color, such as this brown wire, will be used in place of the 12-volt DC plus red wire. If you have any questions about this wiring or about these conventions, please contact me before wiring the fans, because like I said, you certainly can ruin them if you screw up the polarity. All right, so I think I'm going to run it through the top 2 just to keep it nice and neat. We're going to loop it back around. We're going to put it into the red side of the cooling fan. And then once we're done, we can kind of snug this up and make it tighter. So let's see what we got so far. And because this is actually going to go into my cooler as is, I'm going to bundle these guys up as best I can. and maybe put them together with these. Now, guys, this can become quite an octopus and a mess. You just have to be really careful about sorting them out and straightening them out again. Okay, there's no real shortcut to that. Sometimes they get wound up, because remember, this wire comes off of a spool, and so it has a natural curl in it. Okay, so you can see the top of that. We've got our digital input wire loom, and we've got a power wire for this. Now, guess what? We're going to go ahead and we're going to need a green wire to ground this. So let's go ahead and do that now as well, rather than do it in the cooler. And what we're going to do is we're just going to start out by trying to figure out how much wire we really need. We'll start in here. Let's see, do I want to run it back through there? Well, that might be kind of nice so that I don't put a lot of strain on it. And then I'll curl it around and bring it right here. So there you go. I just added a little bit to it. Go ahead and clip that. I am going to strip it. And let's just pretend we got it right. So I'll strip it on both sides. Alright, I did a fast and probably pretty sloppy job of tinning it, but that should be okay. So I am back. And remember, green goes in the ground side, so we're going to clip that one down. We're going to run this also back through the loop. Maybe even bring these guys together with a zip tie. Who knows? We're going to come over here. We're going to pick up one of the open greens. Let's make them all in a row. And we're going to tie that in like so. Okay, now it's beginning to look to me like that's a good place for a sticky pad and a means to hold wire. So what I'm going to do is I kind of like things to look nice and straight and even. So I'm going to try and make it look nice and straight and even. I'm going to drop that in there like so. I'm going to grab a tie wrap, put him through there, and I'm going to start him, and he's going to go ahead and he's going to hold those wires for me. Okay, so there you go. That's the makings. That's the makings of something that's not going to look half bad. Okay, so we don't have an octopus of wires hanging out all over the place. When these things are zip tied together, they're going to be nice and tight to there. They're not going to get in the way. You're not going to run boxes into them. You're not going to pull them out by accident. They'll be nice. They'll be nicely anchored. Now, one of the other things that we're going to do is I also supply some of this very fine 24 gauge. It's loudspeaker wire. Okay, but it's nice and neat, and it's super flexible, and it doesn't really get in your way. And I don't think I'm going to power this guy up off of this area. I'm going to go ahead. I have 2 terminals left on the green, 3 left on the hot. I'm going to bring one over to this other fan assembly, which will be in the cooler kind of up here. Can you see that? It's going to be up top, up in this way, but that's kind of out of the way of the camera. So it's going to be up in here, right? So I'm going to reserve a couple of terminals there, and I'm actually going to feed this one from down at the bottom. So I'm going to go ahead and run it through here again, and then the convention I want you to use here is red, or the copper wire. I know you can't see it, but the copper wire is going to be your hot, your 12 volt positive, and the silver wire is going to be your 12 volt negative. And this kind of helps sometimes if you have a pair of needle nose pliers. You can get this guy in its proper hole. Alright. And I missed. Okay, and now I got them both. They're both in there. Now look, if you ever lose a fan and you say, oh man, that fan isn't working anymore, the first thing for you to do is look at one of these and see whether you've pulled one off or broke a wire in it, because that happens every once in a while. Not often, But if you don't catch it completely, you know, sometimes it does happen. So what we're going to do eventually here, I think, is we're going to go ahead and tie these all together like this. I don't know, we can maybe add another pad in here if we want, or you know, we can put one up here to support it. I don't know, I kind of like it really tight to this side. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's grab another pad. Let's pull it off. Let's get it down into this area here. Go ahead and stick that on. Let's grab another zip tie. And we'll go ahead and feed this guy through if we can get it. It's always fun because I got it down so far. Okay, so I got it that way. Let's take this and start to snug it a little bit. So there, you know, so we've got a pretty nice little assembly here, okay? And what we'll do is we'll tighten all this stuff down and make it even neater once we got it mounted. Once we got it mounted in the humidor, but we certainly got a good start. And so, for any of you that are really intimidated about the wiring process, you shouldn't be. That's about as complicated as it gets until we land the wires back at the control center, and all of those are going to be color coded, so you should be in good shape. That's going to be the end of this video. We're going to go back, we're going to look at the cooler next and install this and literally start wiring up inside the cooler, so can't wait for that. Thanks for watching.